I'm Chinese Mexican immigrant. I'm a member, obviously, of our community, and I'm one of the few trans women surgeons, plastic surgeons that dedicate my whole career to gender surgery. So I feel very privileged to be able to help others as others have helped me in my own personal journey. Um, Not just through the general transition and support, but also, of course, the surgical portion of it. The procedures that are available in terms of this end of surgeries, this side of surgeries, of course, there's masculine and then there's feminine, then there's the neutral options in between are orchiectomy, plus or minus scrotectomy. There's, of course, the most common vaginoplasty, and then there's vulvoplasty, which goes by a lot of other names like limited depth, no depth. I'll go into that in that section. And of course, these surgeries can be combined with other things such as facial surgery, breast surgery, depending on what other body surgeries are requested, and may or may not be sort of ideal or compatible to do at the same time. So the goal of vaginoplasty is both aesthetic and functional. And so the functional portions is that we want not just for like the clitoris to work and have sensation. Of course, I shorten the urethra and I want to make sure that patients are able to void. That's a vital life function, right? And then the vaginal canal for those who seek a full vaginoplasty, of course, that has to be functional as well. And what that means is that it has to have adequate depth, but also adequate girth. And the way to achieve that, but also maintain it, is through dilation. Dilation is something that is mandatory. Every center has its own protocol that usually spans a period of about at least a year, where they have a specific sort of schedule and time that you have to dilate for and how long you have to hold it for. I have my own protocol, and it actually hasn't changed from my days from being at the Meltzer Clinic, who is Dr. Meltzer is about to retire now, but he's one of the older and most experienced gender surgeons. But he taught me to do this surgery, and in fact, I'm pretty open about it. He did my own surgery, my vaginoplasty, and I have not changed the dilation schedule. It's still my schedule for me, but also for my patients, is still the same. 4 times a day for the first month post-op, and then twice a day up to 6 months, once a day up to a year or more, depending on how patients are healing. And after that, you start to slowly space it out bit by bit. It doesn't matter how good of a surgery I do, everything comes out okay. It can all be ruined by not following the dilation schedule. And it's not necessarily like, oh, so-and-so is just very irresponsible or doesn't want to do it or doesn't do it enough because they're too busy, they don't like it, or whatever. But sometimes it is an actual real challenge, like a medical challenge. There are medical issues that are getting in the way of that patient who wants to make this work but can't because of pain, scar tissue, and other things. And so this is where not just my team, but any other team should be available to help patients get through some of these harder periods, especially at the beginning, on how to get through dilation. If you sort of fall behind and things kind of get tight, there are ways to try to make things better. And that can include pelvic floor therapy and other types of modalities to do our best so that the patient can get through it and get to the point where their vaginal lining is healed, but also stable. Vulvoplasty is every single step exactly the same as a vaginoplasty. You're not getting a lesser surgery. You just don't have a vaginal canal. It's still the same recovery, 3 nights in the hospital. If someone wants a canal in the future, you don't burn any bridges. Now, certainly, certain types of lining aren't available anymore, like tunica vaginalis is ruined, because of course that comes from the scrotum and the wrapping of the testicle. So once vulvoplasty is done, that stuff is gone, right? Since I do skin line vaginas, of course, the hip, groin area is still available for me to use, but then it basically guarantees that you will have the scars in the hips for me to line your vagina after a vulvoplasty. Peritoneal lining is a way of doing it, and that has minimal scarring. So that's another way of doing it. And of course, intestinal grafts and even xenografts, like I said, fish skin is also a option. Penile sparing vaginoplasty is also an option for those who don't want to undergo the major bottom surgery options. Orchiectomy and scrotectomy with penile preservation is certainly a very good and safe option to undergo to achieve body congruence for yourself.
This first one is, do you have to remove the lower hair before surgery? If not, what happens to the hair in that location?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I don't require scrotal electrolysis, but I do highly recommend it. I recommend electrolysis over laser, although a lot of centers are doing a combination where they do laser first and then electrolysis. Again, we're all humans, and so some people react very well to just laser and the hair basically permanently goes away. And for some people, that doesn't work, especially light-haired people. And so then electrolysis is what needed. And my biggest advice about the hair removal is that you go to a reputable like electrolysis center, because there is a lot of variability. Because after completing months and months of this, I do the surgery and I find a year later that I'm doing an exam on the patient, or I'm doing the labiaplasty months and months and months later. There's a bunch of hair in there. And they're like, well, but I went through a whole year of this. And so I think there is some variability in that. So no different than seeking out, obviously, a good surgery center. Seek out good places for electrolysis, because the last thing you need is a bunch of hair inside. Ultimately, there's no real functional problem per se, but things get caught in it. It's a hygiene issue, infection, and I've seen it where it's matted, it's full of gunk, all caught up in the hair, and it's just, it's unpleasant. Of course, if you choose peritoneal lining places, of course, then you don't have to have it done. So again, it depends on what type of vaginoplasty you're having done. But I personally do recommend, since I do skin line vaginas, hair removal at a competent place.
There's a few regarding recovery. How long before driving is doable?
Well, I think it's individual. It's uncomfortable the first, I'd say 3 weeks, because of obviously the anatomical area, right? Everything's swollen down there. You sit on it, there's pressure, but it really depends on the person. The biggest thing is that you not be on narcotic pain medication, right? While operating anything, any like machinery, car, or anything like that. I'd say 2, 3 weeks.